razzle dazzle, we're the best. No, the courts aren't on your side, but they're not on the tenant side either. Jen, like, you are independently wealthy when you are naked. I am over treating property management the same as real estate sales. I guess I'll lead the witness. I think it's freaking scammy. Welcome to Hold It with PM Jen, the show for real estate investors who buy and hold forever and ever. Amen. Welcome to Hold It with PM Jen, the show for investors who buy and hold forever and ever and have the accumulated wealth to show for it. Today's show is a really good one. Listen, we're going to the bleeding edge of real estate and technology and showing you how you can use it anywhere, even if you have just one property. You can reduce the vacancy on your properties, and we're going to be talking also about our local market here, what leasing is like for us at One Focus in the summer of 2025, and what we're doing to keep occupancy at 98% now for several years running. See, leasing challenges, you might be having them right now, you might not. They come at different times. Sometimes there's economic factors. Sometimes there's hyper-local factors. Sometimes there's something going on with your unit or you personally that's giving you a challenge to getting that door leased. So today we're really focused on optimizing our leasing process and strategy, ensuring our units get rented as quickly as possible to qualified tenants. We've got two interviews today, two for the price of one, which was free. So the ROI on that is stupid. The first person we're going to talk to is Al Romero with InstaShow. See, Al is a broker and has been a broker for a very long time here in Pennsylvania. And he saw a need in the market after doing some work with tech companies. He saw how he could blend this technology advancements we were getting and solve the everyday problem of showings. Al, thank you for joining me on my podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer. How are you?
Very good. Why don't you tell the folks listening, and again, I just want to remind you, my investors tend to be do-it-yourself investors. They're folks who are trying to manage their rentals, make a go of it. So they might be a dentist or a tradesman, and they're trying to figure out how to lease this store. So just real quick, your involvement in real estate, how long have you been doing that and in what capacities?
So I started in real estate in 2000, so really easy, 25 years. I
Pre-camera
started
phone.
pre-camera phone, thank God. And I started as a real estate agent, beating the path out there, selling residential homes. I did that for many, many years. And then now I'm a real estate broker. I've been a real estate broker for about, I want to say about 8 years now,
Okay.
and have managed offices, property management, which we'll get into in a second, and all the way to lending. So I've touched everything in this field just about.
Wonderful. Well, give us the elevator pitch because you're from central Pennsylvania, but you're involved with this
Yes,
high tech startup. What's the elevator pitch? What problem are you solving for my listeners?
absolutely. Yes, Central Pennsylvania, not Silicon Valley, right?
That's right.
Which is great because it's completely different the way that we've kind of come to the market with InstaShow. But the elevator pitch is that showings are usually the biggest friction point in any business. And the market has shifted from the way that we've been actually doing real estate, and showings are really becoming the biggest part of leasing again. And when I say the market shift, the wait list of having 10 renters lining up for a property to pay you that application fee and fight over the one unit, it's kind of over, right? So what our technology does is allows it to for even the basic landlord that's even managing themselves, like you were saying, to use professional tools that agents use to show the property a lot more efficiently. And secondly, we also have the concept of open touring, which is self-guided tours, to allow the modern consumer to actually get into the property, see the property, so they can hand over that money to you, do your application, and then so you can hand them the keys when they go to lease the unit. Because the speed to getting a vacant property leased is a big piece of the puzzle that honestly in the past probably 7 to 10 years we haven't had to really deal with because they were fighting over it. But the market has shifted and showings have become the biggest part of it. And that's what InstaShow has solved. And of course, with some other functions like safety, you want to know who you're meeting, the fraud protections that we built in, because it all starts at the tip of the spear of that person leasing or going to see the property in order to go through the rest of the processes to lease.
Right. You're totally right about the showing being the biggest friction point, right? And if we think about our consumer, the tenant, that is a pain in the butt. And they're doing it in order to get the information to make a decision. I'm always really proud of our ads because I always say the only reason you're doing the showing is to see like maybe the neighborhood, maybe the clouds I didn't show you. And you're looking to see that I'm not lying. You're looking to see that this matches up to the photos, the video, all the information, because you shouldn't have to waste your time to go drive out and see if that property's right for you. Not in 2025 when we can share as much as we can and as easily and inexpensively. We're not doing Matterports or anything like that, but we're still able to provide the consumer a really great experience. Then you think about it, the side we probably more can identify with is the one of the landlord or investor who, as I say, is like doing their job all day and their cell phone, they're getting text messages and emails and phone calls, and they all say, is it still available? How much is the rent? Where is it? All things that were clearly available in every advertisement, showing this property. And
Yeah.
so it's an aggravating experience. It's one that demands a lot of customer service. And then you've got to run out to meet them. And all of us here today know what it is to get stood up on a porch. I hate it. I feel like a girl who like her prom date didn't show up and I'm standing there and I'm like, oh, the neighbors are going to think I'm such a loser. But it's taking two people moving around in the world, unrelated, and getting them to the same longitude and latitude at the exact same time,
Yes.
happy and healthy and ready to work together. And that is no small feat. And so if we can remove that obstacle and still accomplish what we need, right? What does the landlord need in that moment? They need you to see it and give them a qualified application. That's it. They need a clear road and to what? Make chicken tenders for their kids that night. Like that's
Yeah.
a win in their book. And for the tenant, they want to get really great information about, hey, is this property right for me? Do I feel secure moving forward? Should I give whoever owns this house my social security number? Like
Yes.
that is a huge leap. We really forget about that in this position we're in where we run apps all day as owners of property management companies. And so I want you to think through the typical user. So your client, and by the way, this product works for realtors, investors, flippers, property
Yes.
managers, investors. So we're really talking about this from the investor point of view. I own properties. I'm responsible for showing them. And I want to be a user of InstaShow. What's that user experience going to be like when I go to lease my property? What can I expect?
Absolutely. So if you're using InstaShow from the what we call the visitor, the person looking to tour the property, you'll have a sign that, or in your marketing materials, you'll say, if you want to see this unit, this is how you see it. You download the InstaShow app, and then when they download the InstaShow app, it's just like any app. You're going to create an email, phone number. We're going to verify that information. We're going to make sure that's the right number. You're not using a fake email or a fake phone number, which is very important. And secondly, when you open up the app, you're going to see the property, and depending on how the owner set it up, if you're using what we call open touring, which is our version of self-guided tour, or if your workflow is that you want to actually be there to open up that door and greet the customer, you can just use InstaShow to schedule and get all of the what we call the scheduling circus headaches out of the way, and then now that visitor will go if it's ready for open touring, they'll open it up, they'll schedule when they're going to be at the property, and part of what we do that's different is we're asking them to take a picture of their ID. we're asking for a selfie just to confirm it's them. And within 2 minutes of them downloading the app, their account's created because of the ID. There's a lot of data there. We're creating the whole account based on that information. But what we're doing in the background within a few minutes is we're doing a background check, verifications, fraud checks, all of these things to make sure they are who they say they are. And then now that that's done, they can go through to scheduling when they're going to be there. They show up at the property. If you set it up where you want to chaperone the tour, now this whole process, the system is going, Jen, Jim wants to see the property at 2 o'clock. Is that good? Nope. You just hit one button. It asks Jim to reschedule, and he reschedules. And then for you, it's just one click. There's no emails going back and forth, no text messages over and over. And then now, when everybody agrees, the schedule's set, you can show up at the property. And then here's the important part. You're meeting a verified person that you have a picture of their face. You know their ID's been verified. It's not just an email that you're jumping on to go meet a stranger that says, go show me this vacant property when the sun sets, here in Pennsylvania, sometimes at 4 p.m., right? That's not happening. So now your team, everybody else knows when you're meeting somebody there, what time you're meeting them, what date, and who you're meeting, more importantly. Because unfortunately, in our business, safety is, landlords unfortunately get killed every year meeting somebody at a vacant property. So that's the safety aspect of it. The second part of it, like you mentioned, being stood up at a property, and let's just say this property is 30 minutes away from you, that's an hour wasted back and forth. So if you're using open touring, the other differentiator that we have is we use cameras that have two-way talk. You don't need power. They're solar powered. You don't need Wi-Fi at the property. You got a vacant property. They're powered with mobile cameras or mobile data. You put them on the kitchen countertop. They walk in and I can say, hey, Jen, see you're here at your 2 o'clock appointment. Nice to meet you. I'll be here watching through the camera. If you have any questions, let me know. So now you have a sales aspect to it, right? So you can be sitting at your desk and literally managing multiple showings at the same time, and you have them on your screen. You're watching them, right?
Have you ever done that, Al? Have you ever done a showing where you're on two-way radio? Does the visitor feel helped or creeped out?
So here's what we've gotten, because this is where they get creeped out when we're standing outside and they're done with the tour and we say, hey, we want to do a little quick survey. Do you mind talking to us? So
they didn't know you were there the whole time and you kind of pop up. Well, that'd be creepy. That's creepy, Al. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
When they're not aware.
Actually,
best practices sounds like if you're going to do this, you almost prepare them for, I'll be attending this via technology. I'll be there via maybe video and microphone. So that when you walk in and it's like, what's that show, Charlie's Angels, where the speaker would come out, right? I've got a mission for you, ladies. Okay, so you're solving
the great thing.
issue.
The great thing is that all of that, like you said, we do let them know that there's cameras, that two-way talk, everything in this process. If you're using open touring, they are informed every bit of the way. So it's not as much of a surprise. It's more of a surprise for us as a tech company because somebody else could have been talking with them, but we're there just to get a survey from them, right? Because we want to make the technology better. But this is what they've told us. They said at first, a little weird, right? But here's the thing. Most of the people, they said, well, I have a Ring camera. I do it all the time. It's normal, right? So a lot of this technology, especially for us that we've been doing business in this way for so long, we see that it's a little weird, right? But the modern consumer, they kind of expect this, right? Because we do have Ring cameras that somebody, when they ring our doorbell, we say, hey, I'm not there, whatever the case may be. But we're greeting them, and they said at first, a little weird, but now I know that somebody's there that I can talk to if I have a question, as opposed to, again, messaging, things like that. And weirdly, they said they felt safer and invited in to the tour because, and we actually had somebody from Texas that did it with a competitor, and he said, I did that one, but the weird thing was that I went in, I thought I was breaking into a house, right? Because they didn't feel comfortable doing it by themselves. So that greeting of going, hey, come in, put them at ease that I'm welcome here. So, and that's when I say that the sales aspect to the technology brings, I think, almost like that warmth of, hey, we're using technology, but we're still here to help you get, to see or do what you need to do.
Al, you bring up a really, I was pressing you a little bit on the comfort level of somebody with this, kind of disembodied voice and a camera interacting with them. But you bring up a bigger objection possibly to self-touring, which is that feeling of I'm not allowed here. And it was something I had early in the business. You get over it real quick when you start with 300 doors. So, but putting a key into a door that isn't mine, going across a threshold, even it's so creepy when I first started in this business, running tenant applications, looking at other people's credit reports was like looking at their nudes. I remember I would put them in like a manila folder, like each app in a manila folder. And it was my job as the leasing agent to score it kind of. So I had to look at it in detail to prepare it for my boss. And I would look at it just enough to do my job and then like put it in the folder and like, because you would see their like Kay's jeweler accounts or whatever weird whatever things they had, anyway. But the thing that you're bringing up is, have you done any research on that at InstaShow, at the consumer, the visitor's willingness to go alone into properties, and in general, is that how are you
Yes.
finding that as a company?
Before we even stroke one, one key of code, we did a lot of consumer analysis, right? We did a bunch of surveys, and we were very methodical, and we did it on the visitor side and also the property managers, right? And this is what we found out. And really it came down to age was where the consistency in the answers were. So, and again, I'm a little aged myself, but what we found is that when you got into folks that were um, above mid 50s, it was very weird. They said, no, I'd rather, maybe have somebody there, whatever the case may be. And then the younger that we got, all the way down into people in their 20s and 30s, especially people who never rented, they go, wait, that's not the way it works. And we go, no, you got to call somebody. And they were just like, oh, I have to meet somebody. I was like, can I just, it was really weird. Well, we found out that, and when we say that a modern consumer expects this, they do. And also the smart modern consumer, because they come from Uber, right? They've never had to hail a yellow cab, right? Some folks don't even go to the store. They do everything on Amazon, right? And here's what we also found out is a lot of those folks make decent money and they're good quality tenants, right? So if you're not giving them the what they want on their level, like in sales we call it communication. You communicate with people. Some people want text, some people want email, some people you got to talk to them, right? And if you're not giving them what they want, they'll go. Those opportunities don't die. They just go down the street and rent from somebody else.
You know what's better than building generational wealth? Not a damn thing. And obviously the best way to do that is through buy and hold real estate. But managing your properties yourself, that's a one-way ticket to burnout. This is supposed to be an investment, not a burden. At One Focus Property Management, we don't just manage your rentals. We make buy and hold investment really work. First, get on over to onefocuspm.com. You'll get an inside look at our proven process, plus a ton of free resources for local investors. Then reach out to us so we can build a custom stabilization plan just for your property. We're the biggest, baddest property management team in Lycoming, Clinton, Northumberland, Montour, and Columbia counties. And we're here to give you more protection, less work, and no drama. That's OneFocusPM.com. Yeah. And I know that InstaShow has looked at how time marches on and has looked at the future and said
Yes.
the future is, unaccompanied tours. And I
Yeah.
totally understand that. And we can bitch and moan all we want about Gen Zs and their stares and their lack of ability to make a phone call, but they're all going to be the boss one day. So we better learn the new world order and how we can do business with that. And we have found that trend, and we'll talk about that with Kristen about our, when we talk later about our transition to doing unaccompanied tours. You can call them all kinds of things. I want to drill down on the specifics on two things and then get into kind of how you sell your product. Because I
Sure.
know for people listening, the thing they're thinking about is, I got a country property. I don't got internet, and I might not even have power. So how is this device powered and sending data live enough to get, audio and video streaming?
100%. So the way that our systems work, they're all battery powered. Most of them, like the cameras, you also use solar power. They'll actually even come with a solar panel you can put by the window if you don't have any power. And then you can put the camera, it's got a 20-foot cord. You can put this anywhere. They operate on data cards, same type of data that you have on your cell phone. So if you get cell phone signals out there, you can use InstaShow. And actually, in certain aspects, you could also use it without cell phone data. We're actually working through that right now. But the big part is you don't need Wi-Fi, you don't need power. The information travels either over data from the device itself, or when the user's getting there to the property and they're interacting with the product, because we don't use PIN codes. That's the other important differentiator. When somebody gets to the property, a lot of our competitors are giving somebody a PIN code, and they'll say, well, it's a one-time use PIN code, but it only takes one time for that person to give it to a bad guy or gal, and they go to the property and do something bad, and then they say, oh, I never showed up at the property. That wasn't me.
Right.
And it's almost worse than having somebody copy a key, because that pin can spread like wildfire. So what we do differently is that they use that same face that we matched to actually send a signal to the device to have it unlock, whether it's a smart lock or a lockbox. And we piggyback all of that data through that user's device. So you're getting live information. You don't need to have Wi-Fi at a property that you haven't moved into or is vacant. You don't need power at that property. And this system is completely independent.
So is this a permanent install on each property, or am I buying a setup and moving it from property to property as I need to use it for showings and so on?
So we give both those options. So um, we do have landlords who want to go completely keyless, for example, or somebody who's flipping a house or selling a house and they want to add that value. A lot of consumers like the smart locks, right? So you can put a smart device on it, and then when you flip it over to another tenant, no keys to exchange, right? And that same device works with our system. Now, if you're a professional, say, and you do want to have only one time where you buy a lockbox, buy a portable camera, you can move it, put it on this property, lease it, take it off, move it on to the next. So it's just one hardware purchase up front, and you can use it over and over and over.
And the current pricing plans, I do know that we would buy the technology, and I won't ask you to quote it, but having heard your prices, very competitive, not
Yes.
obscene. Know that if you shop it at all, you'll be fine with that. And there's a lot of options, right, depending on your property. But then, of course, there's some sort of as you use it fee, because as you've
Yes.
mentioned, there's quite a bit going on as you use this. How is that priced for, again, the do-it-yourself investor who's going to get into this because they really want to stop getting stood up on the porch and they love all this security?
Awesome. So Yeah, our pricing, again, when I got into this business, we work with a lot of venture folks who want to make a billion dollars off software. But I really made this so that I could afford it, right? And so our software, you can get it down to 20 bucks a month, right? You can list up to 4 properties with that at a time. You can add a team member. So now if you're not doing this by yourself, maybe it's a husband and wife or a small team of a few agents. Now you got multiple people managing those properties. 20 bucks a month for the service fee. And so for all the identity and verification that we do, we have to pay a lot of information boards. We're connected to 47 DMVs across the country. So there, and the background checks that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So there's a $5 fee when somebody wants to open tour, self tour, because they're getting identified for that first time. Now, once they do it once, they never have to pay for that again. This is another thing that we got from landlords. Some landlords and property managers said, I don't want to pay that fee. I'd rather have them pay for it. And then some property managers, especially in the higher scale of units, they said, no, no, no. We want no hoops for them to jump over. We want as much traffic as possible. We'll absorb that. So it gives you the option to just pay your 20 bucks a month, buy your hardware once, and you can keep using it forever and ever, and not have to pay any more. And really, it depends on your workflow. You want to use open touring, you can use that. You want to use it to verify everybody and take care of the scheduling circus, get that out of the way, you can use it for that. And again, you only need to buy the hardware once and you can keep using it forever, depending on your
Yeah.
workflow.
The payback period for the do-it-yourself investor is really quite short with your proposal. I've talked a little bit with the other folks at your company. I think there's some work to do on the pricing for the property management company, but that's okay. Like, you'll find what's so interesting. I didn't mention this, but I met Al in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, which is in Lancaster County, at a real estate investors meetup. Some of the best ones in Pennsylvania are happening in Lancaster County. I know I'm going to as many as I can this year. And I met them there, and they talked about this product, and this is speaking as a lady who's seen all the products, who's been on the top 3 providers of these services over the last 10 years, I'll tell you, one, this product is more technologically advanced, is solving the security problem, the power and the connection problem, and for the do-it-yourself investor is actually quite affordable. I guess what I'd follow that with is it's weird to see those guys sitting in a meeting room in Mount Joy and to know that they're listening to their customer at that level. They have the experience we have. They're not sitting in Silicon Valley deciding these things. That's often a disconnect we have here as property managers. This is such a gritty in the streets business. It's hyper local. Everything's done differently and the conventions are different. And so when Silicon Valley tries to solve our problems with prop tech, we get mad. We get mad when they tell us that we should just do what they say. And we're like, well, wait a minute. We've been the ones doing this job for so long. And so I appreciate when somebody from this perspective is coming to it from streets and homes and problems that I recognize. And I really appreciate that. I always say the easiest way to trap a real estate professional is to call and tell them, hey, I got a property and here's a lockbox code. Because will we not, Al, just get in our car and just walk into the house? And that is something, when it comes to, I'll meet you there. Great. Meeting a stranger at a vacant property. So safe. Can't wait to do it. And this is the kind of product that, whether I decided to use it with self showings or not, introduces an element of safety and security, introduces an element of oversight to the property that I might not be able to get. So I commend you and your team for doing this. And how does it work? If I listen to this episode and I kind of want to have a demo and talk about it, where do I go and how do I do that, Al?
Absolutely. So a few quick things. If you go to instashowplus.com, plus.com, and you go there, you can actually download and use the account for free for one property. And again, you can keep using that, order a lock, get yourself a camera, and you can use it for free, one property. All you have to do is download the app, get yourself verified, and you are good to go. All you have to do is go to the website. Secondly, you also mentioned about the property manager. We're in the middle of an integration and I think you're going to like the pricing change that we have there because we
Okay,
do listen to our customers.
good. That's awesome. I so appreciate that. And I hope to see you at some NARPM events. I told you you guys need to get into
100%.
NARPM, and I really look forward
Yes.
to seeing you guys there. Thank you for being on the podcast today. Folks, don't tune out. We've got Kristen, the leasing legend, coming up next. Okay. All right. And I'll make sure to put, oh, that was great. Thank you so much. But hang out
No
and
problem.
we'll finish
Yeah,
this
yeah.
up here.
I'm excited.
Oh, good. We'll put you on mute. Kristen, you're off mute. Can I hear you?
Yes, can
Thank
you hear my
you.
voice okay?
Yes.
Do
All
I sound
right.
professional?
No, you never do. Not
We
once
can't
have
be
you ever sounded professional.
we can't be left
Do me a
unsupervised.
favor, move your camera down a hair so that your head is a similar distance from the top as mine. There you go. We're taking
Good.
up a similar amount of space in the frame, which is good when we cut the shorties.
Okay.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. Hold It with PM Jen delivers on every promise, and the promise we made was that the leasing legend would be here with me in studio. She's actually in the other room. We're just here in Williamsport, people. Kristen Lee, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, your voice is very clear, my lady. Real quick reminder for everybody: you have been the leasing legend for 5 or 6 years. How long?
I've been with One Focus for 6 years, but I have been the leasing legend for 5.
So for 5 years, Kristen has dominated this very large portfolio, keeping it at a 98% occupancy now for several years. And we're very proud of her for that because we don't accept just any application. And we'll talk a little bit about what the market's looking like, including how many applications we're denying. But first, what's the vibe, Kristen? What's the vibe? This is July 16th as we record. Don't judge me for how long this takes to come out, folks. I know you're looking at your calendar going, she'd be real slow, but I'm managing a lot of doors here.
Right.
What's the vibe in mid-July 2025? Reminder, our territory: Clinton, Lycoming, Montour, Columbia, and Union County. So we are North Central PA, baby. What are you feeling in the streets?
Desperation for good properties.
Okay.
I am hearing from a lot of people that there's a lot of bad stuff out there that rent-wise is comparable pricing-wise. It's not meeting the need. So I get the desperation when they go to our properties and they're like, wow, like this is clean. It's put together. It looks like the pictures. It looks like the video. I'm interested. How about I pay cash up front? Like I'm getting a lot of like unhinged offers and a little bit of unhinged communication with people because they're desperate to find something that is good for their needs and not just like hitting a certain price point. Like they're telling me there's not a lot of great stuff out there that, you know,
So
other
they're having
people
to work
have.
hard to find what they want.
Yes.
And I've always said in our market, that is kind of the story. If I went down, and you're based in Al's based in Lancaster. So he has, like, if you go to a grocery store in Lancaster County, when you go in, there's a rack and there'd be something called the apartment guide. You open it up and it's all these, 200 to 500 door communities. And you're picking between price point, when it was built, does it have a pool, does it have a fitness center, how close to this is it, do I like the leasing office and agent, that sort of thing. It is something you can do online, narrow it down, and have a very predictable sales experience. But here, you only get that predictable sales experience with us and maybe 2 to 3 multifamily properties that are large enough to have an on-site leasing staff. And so, as a result, when you search, when you go to apartments.com or Zillow.com, you find a property you like. It's owned by somebody who has no phone etiquette, right? Who doesn't return their calls, who doesn't understand fair housing. Let's be honest. Maybe they're being discriminated against. And so for the
Absolutely.
consumer, I can imagine if I'm having a difficulty finding what I want, and when I do find something that I want, I sense an obstacle. When you say unhinged, you mean we're seeing unattractive, unladylike behaviors?
Absolutely. They're literally calling me going, why did you rent this apartment? I didn't even get to see it. I wish I could apply. And I'm like, girl, settle down. It's been on the market for 15 days. You're just late to the party. Like, I do have other stuff though.
Right. So let's talk about that. What kind of days on market are you seeing right now across the portfolio?
We are doing pretty well. We're at 24 days on market.
Okay.
We got into a little bit of spicy situation here. The past year has been, and 24 days is a really good place to be.
How high have we seen it get? Where have we kind of spiked in the last 12 months?
We've been up there in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
We had some stuff just hanging out and things that we're looking at it going, why is this still vacant? Like,
Now,
what
our
is
average
happening?
was it 40s or 50s, was it? Or was our average 40s and
Some of
50s?
we've been in the 40s. We've been in the
Gotcha.
40s with our average for sure.
So I've seen that. I'm, of course, talked to property managers all over the country, and many property managers kind of talk about the market the last 7 or 8 years the way Al referenced it, which was it was kind of a gimme. We've not seen that here. I mean, COVID was certainly a very nice tailwind, but and the oil and gas boom was a nice tailwind. But in between those, it can be challenging. It can get soft, and yeah, across the country, property managers are starting to talk about, hey, we're seeing this. We're also doing a lot better on tracking data, and we're starting to get more honest about our days on market, because I think we've all just kind of said these things and it hasn't necessarily been true. And so days on market in my company means vacant days on market. That is the amount of rent loss between the move out of the previous tenant and securing the tenant coming in. Does not mean they moved in 24 days.
Right.
It does not. And that is a blend of whether we can pre-lease or not, what work needs to be done to the property after they move out. I mean, there's just a million things that contribute to that. But yeah, and so I'm really impressed with how you keep things moving around here. Why don't you talk about the quality of applications? Do you have an idea what percentage we're declining versus approving these days?
Right now at our 13-week rolling total, which is like on our data that we look at every single week, we've denied 45% of the applications that have come in over the past 13 weeks. We have also worked tirelessly, and I say we, I mean the leadership team, and very specifically leadership role in my department, which is Jennifer Rippey, worked very tirelessly to make sure that our criteria was providing qualified applicants from top to bottom to our owners, and that change has prompted a lot more denials. Now, with that being said, I will tell you the applications that are coming in that are approvable, they're not just barely being approvable. These are really good qualified applicants. Like when we look at the number, the bottom line number at these applications, I'm like, wow, we got a good one. We got a
Wow.
really good one.
Wow. And what you're talking about, I'll kind of share with the listener. We have an application scoring criteria, right? It's your rent to income, your credit score, your criminal background, and your landlord history. And we boil that down into some points, and that's how we figure out who's approvable and who's not. We really take all the guesswork out of it because, and Al spoke about this, how expensive it is to do these activities of application processing, identity verification. And so our application fee is actually at $65 these days. And folks, that is not a profit center. I am losing money. That is almost entirely hard costs to technology to make sure, for instance, you mentioned, Kristen, the change in our criteria. So what's been going on, we did a data project with Bucknell University. We learned that credit score is the most predictive factor in that mix of application factors to tenant outcomes. So we reweighted our scoring, put in a minimum, and we've been doing these debriefs on, I would say, your tenants where it didn't go well, right? We rented to them. They ended up not being creditworthy based on their performance. And then we go back to the app, we go through the tenancy, we pull it apart. Where did we go wrong? Could we change the process? And that's where another argument for the minimum credit score came in. So we did recently change that. So you say 45, the last quarter, essentially, we denied 45%, accepted 55% of the applications we received at a cost of $65 each. So these are not people who are doing this just on a whim, this application.
Right.
This is significant. Last year, I'll share with you, it was 60-40. We were declining 40% and accepting 60. So that change, that about, 10% change, we've seen that increase so far that you're reporting, sounds like it could be that, our increase in the quality requirement. Do you sense there's anything in the market? Do you sense, like, there's been times in the leasing market where we go, I can't catch a qualified app to save my life. Like, I'm getting apps, but they're not qualified, right? Do you sense that there's some of that going on?
The only thing that I'm sensing in the market is people are just have a lot of uncertainty around things that are happening. The economy is, there's a lot of question marks out there. I don't think that it's affecting our applicants. I rarely get a story at this point where someone's like, well, COVID just like really ruined my life. Because
Right.
during COVID, people who care about their credit and would be a qualified applicant did what they need to do to like make sure that their credit worthiness and their money, like everything still functioned. And I hate to put that out there as an example because I do understand that there's very different circumstances for people, but I'm not getting like reasons why, like, there's not really anything out there that's an indicator to me that it out in the streets there's something going on to indicate anything different.
Yeah, I'm definitely sensing uncertainty in the market right now. And the audience I talk to are the investors, right? Because I'm selling our services to them. And my leads are down, but then the leads that I've been working for a long time, some of them are coming back. I sense that investors are starting to sense a change, right? And they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it, but I don't see them making a ton of moves right now. I mean, properties are still selling. That is still happening. I do see that happening. I'd say probably the investors I'm working with are, I'm not going to call them sophisticated, but more sophisticated and more caring. They buy things with purpose. They're interested in making sure they perform. They don't take foolhardy risks. When you talk about your days on market, riding right now around 24 days, and bravo to you. We love that. But as you said, it's been higher. Is there a unit type that is harder to move right now? Are you more nervous when I bring you 5 studios or 5 3-bedroom single family houses? Which one would you rather have if I said get them leased right away? If you're serious about buy and hold investing, you need tools, not hype. I'm PM Jen, and at holditwithpmjen.com, I've got the real stuff. A full step-by-step video series on how to evict a tenant in Pennsylvania, my best tips and tricks, and updates on where I'm speaking next. You'll also be able to download your free 2025 No Bullshit Playbook for buying and holding rentals in North Central PA. This is a 20-page playbook full of information about how to succeed in my market. It is candid and real and written by me. This is the stuff no one else will tell you because I actually do this work every day and I'm not shy about sharing what I know. So check it out at holditwithpmjen.com and follow me on all the socials. Let's buy and hold forever and ever. Amen.
Right now, I would be more nervous if you brought me a bunch of apartments.
Okay.
Like if you're talking about like, multi-units, I would be a little nervous to be like, cool, I'm just going to throw all these on the market because people are definitely leaning more towards that whole house vibe. So townhouses are going quickly. Single family homes are getting a lot of attention. I think even like the duplexes are, they're rolling through. Out of all the properties that we have, I always feel like duplexes, they just roll right through. Whether the market's hard, soft, whatever it is, duplexes will always go. There's a time and a place, I think, for single family homes, and then there's a time and a place for apartments.
Yeah.
During COVID, we were getting a lot of people that were coming out and they were just like, I'll take this apartment, I'll take whatever, and then after that, it kind of changed. We went through where we were leasing apartments like crazy, and then we went through where we were leasing just single family homes like crazy. Right now, people are hot on the trail of the single family homes. And we also have a lot of great single family homes. So that also helps people kind of draw
Yeah.
their attention into us.
any of the sub-markets in our market lagging or really showing a lot of promise right now in terms of demand, how quickly you're leasing?
Lewisburg is a hot pot. People love those properties. They went the places that we had, because we just had a few. And when I say a few, I mean like three. And they were like boom, boom, boom. And it was so quick. And I was also shocked at, just finding that one, we were on target with what the market rents were, because we all looked at those rents and we were like, I don't know, that's a little scary. It's high. Because in this Williamsport market, it's like a 40% difference in what the rent was. So we were just like, we're gonna try it, and it worked. And I was like, holy cow, it worked.
Yeah. Well, and we took that risk because you did a market rent study, like a phase 1 of a market rent study across our whole market. And we kind of base Williamsport's our home market. It's where we literally are sitting right now and we lay our heads at night. But so we kind of compare off Williamsport. And if we think about the Lewisburg, Danville, Bloomsburg little run there on I-80, Lewisburg on average 40% higher rents than Williamsport. Danville we're seeing 30, and Bloomsburg about 10. So when I'm signing properties, I'm much more excited to get that single family home for $2,500 when my single family homes here in Williamsport might be $1,200 to $1,500. So that's exciting to me. I just had a call to your point, Kristen, Lewisburg homeowner. He, how is this? Through some circumstance, it's his home he used to live in. He's renting it now. He says, I'm trying to rent it. I've got it out on the stuff and I'm scared. He said, I'm scared. He's meeting
give
people.
it to me. Give it to me. I'll take it. Thank you.
Well, he's meeting people and he's meeting people, with all kinds of manner of business communication. And
Right.
he's, I think he's an electrical engineer maybe. And, he's a little shocked. He has what he's hoping to walk in the door and what he sees as creditworthy. And the truth is the professional leasing agent, like a Kristen, knows that qualified tenants come in all kinds of packages. And sometimes they're not very good at communication. And sometimes they need a little handhold to get through it. But that's why we have people. And that, my friends, is why when everybody tells you that AI is going to take every stinking job out here, even AI can't get Alice to book a self-showing on her phone. Kristen can do it about 90% of the time. The other 10%, we have to send Alice a sorry card. No, I'm just kidding. I want to talk about safety a little bit with you, Kristen. And something Al brought up that is interesting to me is, actually, maybe we'll back up a second and talk about our self-showing procedure, because we've been doing self-showing since 2020. In 2019, we said, hey, we see the way the direction the industry is going. We see how the fees work and what owners are willing to pay for. And we also see that we're paying licensed real estate agents mileage to drive across 5 counties and show leases that are only making us $500 in some cases on a leasing fee. So how do I do that? And we looked at, we were going to have to go to self-showing. But in the fall and winter of 2019, I had already tried that 5 years earlier. In 2014, I had done it on a student housing property. It was very empty. The owner was very open to this. I didn't get one tour on the self-showing. And I had like a QR code out front. But in 2014, 2015, we weren't using QR codes, even the kids. And this wasn't a very advanced school. This is more of a trade school. Anyway, it didn't work. And I said to the team, I understand this is the direction we need to go, but this isn't as simple as calling a vendor and signing up and launching it. This is going to be a huge educational lift. We're going to have to educate the tenants, the owners, everybody how to use and do this. And then COVID happened in March. And I got to sit at home and I looked at my annual goals and I saw everybody was doing QR codes. Everybody was doing contactless. And I was like, contactless. That's a better word than self-showing. And so that first, I want to say 6 weeks of COVID, I remember I did a lot of work independently. I even filmed the videos about how to use it on my own front porch, right? Because we weren't seeing people. So I was just on my porch making videos for the company. And so we launched self-showings. The biggest concern we had back then was, how do we protect the property, right? What everybody thinks. The bad actor just wants to get in there and poop on everything so bad, he's going to do all manner of thing to get in and do that. And so, Kristen, why don't you talk a little bit about how we prevent that? So what are we doing to make sure that only the rightful people are getting in, they're having that good experience, and then hopefully we can turn them into tenants and nothing bad happens?
So the software that we use is very linear to the software that you talked about earlier. It takes an identification. I wish it took a selfie. Honestly, I wish it took a selfie. That would be something that I would absolutely love. So it does the ID. It does like a quick check. If anything pops up that's sus, they're like, nope, archive. You want this person to tour, you got to reach out to them directly. You've got to communicate with them because we are absolutely not letting them book a tour with us.
Okay, so the service we're using, and we don't have to talk about them or promote them, not for any other reason than they're not here with us, so F them. But
yeah,
they're calling it out. They're kind of flagging that prospect, right?
Yep.
Problematic prospect makes a request in the middle of the night. Software flags it. They're going to tell you in the morning, hey, Kristen, you got a live one, and if you want to mess with this one, it's not going to be through the self-showing system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of times what happens, like if an ID is not clear, if it's, Patricia taking a selfie of herself instead of her identification.
It's funny sometimes because it asks for an ID, and what people take a picture of instead of an ID is often quite humorous.
It honestly, and it's just so sweet because it's usually like older people because they just don't quite grasp it. And I'm like, I'm calling Patricia because like she's clearly has some honest intentions. Like she smiled and everything. So, so it goes through that. And then I have additional communication that goes out with their communication that lets them know, hey, by the way, because people around here, self-shows, it stumps them. It doesn't matter that we've been doing it since COVID. They're like, what is this? Because they're not used to being forced into like having that technology. So, there's communication that lets them know, hey, by the way, many of our properties are self-guided tours. If you have questions, here's the number to call. And then when they get there, there's additional stuff. So like there's a lot of system and checks and balances. I can also look when I wake up in the morning, whether it's a weekend or not, because, leasing, I'm monetized to do my job. So I work after hours because that's what I want to do because I hustle. And I can see the actions. So I can see if they were sent the code to the lockbox. So they can say, oh, I didn't show up. And I'll be like, au contraire, mon frère. I can actually see that they sent you the code to the lockbox. And FYI, like, I know you were inside the property. I also do follow-ups. On the weekends, I don't mess around with people too much, but I'm calling people on Monday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If I have to communicate with somebody, like if they put in some communication that, their feedback was a little weird, sometimes on a weekend I'll make a phone call or I'll send an email because I want to check in with these people because I want to make sure that even though you called our property a piece of shit, I still want to make sure that like if that was a piece of shit, could I find you a diamond? Like, what can I do? Like, yes, you're sassy, but like, I'm still here to do a job. So let's find you a rental.
You make a really great point, Kristen, because it isn't just opening the door, they fall in love, and you have a tenant. And I've talked about this a million times, so I won't repeat it, but the long series of wins you need to get from prospect needs a house till they've leased and successfully moved into your house and are credit worthy. That's a long process. And so you're doing what we all hope employees are going to do when they get AI. Use their energy to do what's best, build relationships, follow up, put that extra sauce on it. Because the truth is, you're so much more than a hand that turns a key. You are a skilled professional who's very good at getting people into housing and taking them through that process. So I really like how you called that out. Now, sometimes I hear you talk about, to the point of security, that whoever showed up to the property is not who's registered. So the example being me, Jen, 3:00 in the morning tonight, I get to liken that property and I schedule a tour for the next day, right? With you. In this case, it's an accompanied. And I put in my husband's ID. I put it under his name, his picture, right? Because I'm an old-fashioned lady. And, old-fashioned ladies don't use their real name when they're doing business things, maybe. So I put that in, but I show up the next day. What would happen when you're standing on the front porch and I show up and you were expecting a man of a certain picture? Tell me what you would do. What's the policy?
I would ask if you have a tour. I would pull up my calendar, my little like software page, and I'd look and I'd say, I'm sorry, I don't have your information here. And I'll get the rebuttal. Well, it's my husband. It's my husband. Well, I don't know that. So unfortunately, if you'd like to view this property, you're going to have to go back in. You'll have to book a new tour and we'll meet here at another time. And it's a hard conversation to have with people. I've stood out on West 3rd Street here in Williamsport, and literally this woman screamed in my face, and I was like, ma'am, you can scream all you want, but your face is not the one that is supposed to meet me here. So you are absolutely not going in here, because I don't know what your intentions are. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you came from. I don't know if you're married to him. I don't know if you even know this person. It's not a great way to start out with a prospect. But a qualified tenant is absolutely going to say, okay, like, I can do that, because I've had people on both sides. Like, it's not just like that volatile thing, but I'll tell you, when you tell them they're not going to see it, I drove here 4 hours. Well, you should have thought about that when you put the information in. When we're asking for who's going to show up, that's what we need.
The communication we make couldn't be clearer, because of course we hate these 1-star Google reviews and things like that. But the truth is that that person can yell and scream all they want. I hope they show up to the candlelight vigil for the dead leasing agent who didn't follow the safety protocols, right? And the tools and resources that their broker provided. And I know that's dramatic, but I have a perfect track record of no dead employees so far, and I'd like to keep it for my whole career. Why don't we talk a little bit about protecting the consumer from scams, right? So there is the possibility, right, that we have a bad actor who gets access and, as I said, poops on everything and spray paints and takes all the appliances and has a wild party, right? That could happen. Or the bad actor could put some distance between them and their crime and just take the money they're after by tricking someone into paying them to lease the property, and they essentially lease it to someone in a sneaky deaky way. That, truthfully, when we talk about squatters and this possibility, is the one we're facing really in my market. Now, not every market. There's a lot of markets out there of people who are trying to break in and live there and not do anything. But what is most likely to happen around us is that somebody would steal the ad, work with the technology in such a way that they could pretend they were leasing it, get somebody's personal information, and, either write a lease and give them no access, and take the money and give them no access, or give them the access via this lockbox they've kind of like hijacked. And I show up as the rightful property manager or owner of the property and go, who the hell are you? Right? And they go, I live here, right? I rented it from John. And that is what we're worried about. So you've really got a great system for this, Kristen. When you put a property on self-show, what are you doing to make sure that people who interact with us aren't getting scammed? Because by the way, they blame us because they'll never find the scammer, and we're just sitting here taking every call that comes in like ding dongs.
One of the biggest things, if you stand by, I'm going to show you.
Okay.
When they come in the property, they are greeted by this right here that says, if you did not get access from One Focus Property Management to this property, you are absolutely being scammed. So a scammer isn't going to go in there and clear out my business cards. They're not going to go in there and clear out my posters that I have hanging in inconspicuous places, because I do have tiny ones that I hang around. And the other side of it is we're going and we're checking. Staff is checking that property on a very regular basis. If I'm seeing something that's very suspicious, I am absolutely going to be like, let's just take a drive over to this property, because I've got a feeling. Yeah. And, the feeling typically has not been, justified, but you get a vibe from people sometimes. Like you get a phone call or, just something that leads you to believe that something suspicious is going on. So I usually get into the car and I drive. And sometimes it's a Saturday night and it's 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm having these intrusive feelings and thoughts that somebody might be doing something bad there or left the door unlocked. So I'm going to go check. And that has really helped us like mitigate like getting into the situation where like we're dealing with like a squatter situation where someone has leased it and like, done that without our consent.
Yeah. Knock wood, we have not had the squatter situation. We've had attempts that we've, thwarted, but it's not gotten to that point, and that is very, very lucky. On the topic of self-tours, because from the perspective of the do-it-yourself investor, right? And I'm listening to this show and I'm going, oh man, it's always been kind of easy to rent, but you're right. It's kind of gone on. Like the fella I talked to in Lewisburg, and I'm going to go see him next week. He goes, I kind of thought this would rent right away. I didn't know what I was getting into. So they're hearing self-shows and they go, wow, that's good. I like that. That's a good tactic. Real quick, what's the worst thing that ever happened on a self-show?
Worst thing that we ever had happen, we had a kid show up and he was super duper excited about this apartment. He wanted to apply and he got so excited, he put the key in his pocket and somebody showed up after him and they're like, there's no freaking key. So I call this kid and he goes, oh, I'm sorry. I'll take it back over. I just was really excited about this property. And like, that was literally the worst thing that happened.
Right.
And we ended up renting to him. So
And we also ended up changing that lock before he moved in, because although I didn't know if he went to the hardware store and made a copy, and
You're right.
and I often cite that as probably one of the worst things is the accidental key in pocket, right? The key in pocket problem, and we just are out there like changing the lock immediately. But compared to the cost of mileage and your time and all of that, it's really negligible. What else would you advise if I'm a do-it-yourself investor? I'm sitting on this property. What do I have to do to make the money start flowing, Kristen? Tell me, and be real with me. Don't pull any punches.
Okay, no punches. It doesn't matter if it's a $400 a month apartment or if it's a $4,000 a month house. You need to make sure that you are putting the time and effort into the things that make the property great. A $400 a month apartment will go a long way and rent very quickly if it has nice paint, decent floors, and clean appliances. We're not talking about old, janky 1970s appliances. Get yourself your standard freezer top refrigerator and put it in there. Those little things make such a huge difference. Now, if you're looking at $4,000 a month and it's not leasing, you need to take a look at, is this even the market rent, or are you just pulling some fantastic number out of your brain? Like, have you done a little bit of research? You can own just a singular property and still need to do the research on what the market rent is, because if you're trying to get a qualified tenant that isn't Susie's brother down the road that really needs a place to stay, or your aunt that, like she can only pay $1,000 a month, but sometimes you got to help her out with the electric bill. Like, you need to make sure that you're putting the effort into making sure that your rent is at market rate. And like, things that matter are, nobody wants to see the touch-up spots all over the wall. They don't want to see the carpets that are rippled or have stains and things like that. Those are things that you can change. Landscaping. It really makes a difference when people walk up and look at the house and go, and then they go inside and they're wowed. When I did the market study, I was in the Danville area and I ascertained that they don't care a whole lot about the exteriors of the properties. Because you go inside and you get a razzle dazzle. But you go outside and you're like, this is a lump of coal. Like, I don't like this. It's like not okay. And, I'm very judgy. I don't know if you can tell. Like, I've got opinions. But, like, when I'm looking at a property that's $2,500 to $2,700 a month, I want you to blow my hair off my head. Like, I want to see something that is done from top to bottom, from outside to inside. Like, those things matter. Don't dump a ton of money into the $400, $500 a month apartment. but you still got to do something. Don't assume just because it's only $400 to $500 a month that a qualified tenant is going to say that's okay, because they're not. A qualified tenant is a qualified tenant. They have needs and they have options when they are a qualified tenant.
Yeah. When I did my undergrad degree in marketing, they taught us the 3 ingredients to marketing, and I would tell the DIY investor to think about this. It's price, product, promotion. Is your price right? Is your product good? And are you promoting it correctly? And we've talked about that. Make sure you're on with your price. And I think we've done other episodes about that. I certainly make videos about that. Make sure your product be looking good. Make sure,
Yes.
how does it compare to other product in the market, other inventory? And then how are you promoting it? If you're putting a Lowe's, black and red for rent sign out front with your phone number that you barely answer, that's not great promotion. And to be honest, that's not where qualified tenants are looking and what they want to do. If you had a job that paid you $100,000 a year and you were prepared to pay $1,000 a month in rent, and you had all the demands of that job and whatever you've got going on personally, does calling a handwritten sign and whatever that holds for you feel good?
No.
Nope. It certainly doesn't feel like when the heat's out that they're going to be there, bells ringing and getting it fixed. I don't have a lot of security in that.
Yeah, and then the marketing, it just like goes right into like, people think like there are markets where they're like, oh, people will come to us. The doctors, the nurses, we get those medical professionals that have all of this. But the reality is like those medical professionals are absolutely looking at Zillow, apartments.com, hot pads. They're not searching Facebook. They're not driving around the town. Actually, a lot of times, like when you have those high dollar rents, you're getting people from out of town, people that can't view the property. So get a video on it, get lots of pictures on it. Like, you've got to do your work, because if you don't put in the reps, you're not going to rent it.
Right. That's really good advice, Kristen. And we're going to end it on that today. I think investors, you've gotten a lot to think about. I hear you call me all the time and you get caught in this. It's been a month. What do I do? It's been 2 months. And I'd remind you to remember that this is like a hotel room. Every day you don't rent it, that money is gone. So take action. Take it swiftly, never compromise on whether or not you rent to a qualified tenant or not. But most of all, follow Hold It with PM Jen. Follow me on all the socials. I'm even on freaking Instagram now. I'm on TikTok as a grandma. It's humiliating. I need you to get over there. Interact with me. Tell me that you're listening. I want to hear from you. Please, please, please. And listen, I'll give you just someone help me get a message out to Wilson Phillips, the band from the 90s, the ladies. I want you, if you know Wilson Phillips, I've been trying to email their licensing company. I want to license the theme song or the song Hold On for my theme song. Hold on for one more day. Well, listen, I actually sang that, by the way, at a talent show in the 3rd grade. Another fun fact about me. But I want to license it. I don't have a lot of money, so I might need to make a hard luck case. But if you know the Wilson Phillips ladies and that they might identify with me, give me a ring, email me. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time. Oh my God, you guys are going to love this. Listen up. Like, this one guy, we terminated his lease, right? And he wasn't happy about it. Obviously, nobody is, but that's kind of the deal with renting. It's not forever.
Yep.
So we terminate the lease. He gets big mad. He goes into the tenant portal where you can update your phone number and your email. So he decides he doesn't want to hear from us anymore. So he changes his phone number to all fives and his email to suckadick@lol.com.
Yep.
Right? And we see this. It's all very attractive. We're like, got it, rocket.
We even email it.
We emailed it. You told me.
Right. You said that's what it was.
So anyway, the tenancy ends. I don't know if this guy owes the owner money, but he disagreed with the security deposit. He didn't think it was right, and he sued us. And we brought our attorney to the hearing to deal with this. And I'm friendly with the attorney, and I go, listen, this is going to be, I'm going to be a lot happier paying your invoice if you find a way to say this email address to the judge.
Please.
He's like, say less.
Please.
Say less. So he gets his papers out, right? And he's doing his cross-examination or whatever. And he's like, uh-huh. And it was about communication. He jumps on it. He's like, and did you change your email in the provided tenant portal on May 5th, 2021? And the tenant's like, no, man, no. He goes, oh, interesting. And he gets his glasses. He's like, You didn't change it to suck a dick at LOL.com. I was just like, yes. I loved it. You know, because that guy did not, he was mad one night.
Yeah.
But later, you came across where he was living out of because we couldn't find a forwarding address.
That's so funny. He did not want to give us a forwarding address. And actually, I found it that same day as the hearing. So we left. I was with my husband. We went to go like look at a property and we came back. He just had a car with like a decal on it that you knew it was his.
Right.
He didn't want to give me a forwarding address, so I followed him. So I followed him and I got the forwarding address and I proceeded to send mail to it.
Yeah.
Don't drive a car with a big ugly thing on it. Hey, it's PM Jen. That stands for Property Manager Jen. And if you're in this game to build real wealth that gives your family options, freedom, and security, you're in the right place. I specialize in the hold part of the buy and hold strategy. With over 22 years of experience managing portfolios of 300 to 700 doors, I've seen it all, and I'm not here to sugarcoat it. See, holding real estate is powerful, but it's also gritty, complicated, and full of surprises. And that's why I created Hold It with PM Jen, to give you the real stories, the real advice, and the real strategy you need to hold strong for the next 30, 40, even 50 years. So follow me at Hold It with PM Jen on socials, and let's never sell, okay?